Welcome to Building My Legacy podcast. This podcast is designed for leaders and entrepreneurs who want to leave a legacy and will provide strategies that focus upon key elements for legacy creation, determining your desired impact and its benefit, increasing your legacy's reach by engaging key stakeholders, planning, prioritizing, and executing. Here's your host, Dr. Lois Sonstegard.
Welcome, everybody, to today's Building My Legacy podcast. I have with me Rilus Dana today. He is a probate and estate attorney and founder of Maat Legal. Maat, I'll have him explain what it is, but it is the Egyptian goddess for law and order. And Rilus is interesting because he has focused his business on probate and estate, but really looking at how do you use the digital aspect of what we all live with today to function and to provide legal advice and legal care for your clients in a meaningful way. So I am going to let you, Rilus, tell how you came about that and what the story is behind that.
Yeah, so thanks for having me here today. Excited to be here and speak with your audience. So yeah, I'm so Maat Legal, as you mentioned, the name comes from the Egyptian goddess of law and order. So I practice law. My estate planning practice is my last name, Dana and Associates, and our website there is Dana Legal Help. So that's where I practice law. But in practicing this estate planning, I've developed some tools and some resources for attorneys. So I offer those through Maat Legal for attorneys. So there's a course I'm working on for attorneys that explains some of my digital asset planning and processes. And I'm going to be sharing that with other attorneys so they can, bring that same level of planning to their clients. So my history, my background, I'm a second generation estate planner. So I got in this business from my dad, and I started during college. So during my undergraduate degree, I started working at my dad's estate planning law firm, and I got a little taste of it, back then, and I found that it was something interesting. So I decided to go to law school and to get in the profession. And something that, a big part of my practice is this digital asset planning. So as you mentioned in the intro, I'm passionate about updating the estate planning process for our new digital age. And it's interesting how people are changing and how much the internet has changed things, right? We're still dealing, we've had the internet, it's been popular since the 90s. But there's still effects of it that are changing industries. And the legal industry is one of those, I would say. I feel like when I first started in 2002 as a law clerk, that was kind of during the peak of the legal Zoom, and that the attorney substitutes and the internet providing ways to do that. I feel like the technology produced good alternatives to attorneys, but it didn't really help the attorneys per se. It didn't really, not all attorneys and law firms were leveraging technology. And a lot of these older attorneys were actually kind of fighting it. It was hard to convince them to do something new when what they have done has always worked. It's always worked to have paper files and you have 3 copies of everything, and that's just what you do. It's nice security to hold all that paper. So my career, I've really enjoyed adapting and updating the process to fit how people are living. So I guess you want me to keep going on that?
Okay. So I'm fascinated, before you continue, I'm fascinated by attorneys not being up to date with digital, because if there's anybody that it would think would find that would be important, it would be attorneys, because it's a win or lose game proposition that you're in.
Yeah. Now, a lot of attorneys, I feel like a lot of attorneys are scared of their own shadow. Like they don't they don't want to do something unless, you know, 3 other attorneys have told them it's okay and they've seen how it works. So, you know, right when this new law came out, I was really excited. So
what's the new law that you're referring to?
So the Revised Uniform Fiduciary Access to Digital Asset Act, or in short is RUFADA. So this law, so Arizona passed it in 2016. I'm also licensed in California. They passed it in 2017. I'm licensed in Nevada too. I don't practice there, but they also passed it as well. And it's the exact same law. So there's this group, I can't remember the name of it right now, but there was a group that actually wrote it. And then they brought it to all these states. And I understand this group worked with technology companies as well. So they got together and like, hey, let's come up with a solution on how to solve this problem, you know, with digital information. So Arizona passed it 2016. And I remember going to continuing education that year. You know, as attorneys, we're required to take so many hours a year. And there was one, it was contemporary issues in modern estate planning. Oh. And at that time, they talked about what President Trump might do. This was before he doubled the estate tax. And it's kind of funny that the speaker then was saying that no way that they would double the estate tax. And Trump did double it from 5 million to 10 million. But I raised my hand. You know, it was a panel of like the biggest law firms in Phoenix. And I said, all right, guys, you know, this is modern issues and contemporary estate planning. I was like, in light of Arizona passing the Digital Asset Act, what are you guys doing to help your clients plan for the information that they store electronically? Crickets. The panel members, one went like, what are you doing? I don't know, a lot to get back to you on that. So I was like, thank you very much. You answered everything I need to know. It's like no one is on this topic. So that was 2016. I do see it's in some other documents now. You know, as an estate attorney, I do the probate and trust administration as well. So I get to see documents from basically all the other attorneys, all the other big players in town, and really people from all over. So at first, attorneys, they would say it's not important. You know, you don't need to do that. And I think that's just the answer when they don't understand it. They say, oh, that's unnecessary. It's like, what are you, a YouTuber? Are you internet famous? You know, who cares about that? But here's why it's so important. So even if you're not internet famous or a YouTube celebrity, it's just, where do we keep information these days? You know, are you getting your bank statements on paper? Does that come to the mailbox? Or is your important information stored electronically?
And so tell me, why is that important from a probate or estate perspective?
Yeah, so a very common phone call we get at the law firm, we get it from the kids after their parents pass away or after they suddenly become ill. And the call, what they want to know a lot of times, they say, well, how do we figure out what assets they have? You know, I found the legal documents. I found this binder. I found these 20-year-old documents. But how do I know where to go, what banks to go to? And what we used to tell people, I remember the first time that call came in, and I went to the attorneys and paralegals, and they said, tell them to look around the house for bank statements. And I was kind of shocked. I was like, don't we have a better answer? I'm sure this caller is expecting a better answer because I was. They're like, no, we don't know what's out there. You know, if there's no records of it, tell them to start getting the mail. See what bank statements come in the mail. So that's why this is so important. That was our, you know, lawyers, these fancy law firms. That was our tools. We would say, get the mail, see what statements come in the mail. Then we can figure out if we need to do a probate, you know, if the account's still titled in the name of the deceased, or we can see if it's owned by a trust, and then we can go administer the trust. But until we know what accounts are out there, you can't really do anything. So when that law passed in 2016, I saw that legislation and I got really excited. I was like, finally a way to give a better answer to that phone call. You know, finally we can do something better. And here's what I came up with. So at first I started designing my own digital asset trust. I studied the law. I got really familiar with it. And basically it says that you can leave instructions for someone to copy an account, share an account, or delete it. So I guess let's go back into the definition of digital assets too. So the reason why this is so important, digital assets, the way they define it in this act, and I know at least 49 states have passed it. Pennsylvania might be holding out. I don't know if they have. But digital assets are defined. We've got some sirens going by. Be dramatic. Okay. Digital assets are defined as information stored on your behalf electronically. So information that companies are storing on your behalf electronically is a digital asset. So even if you're getting all of your statements, all of your bank statements by paper, I guarantee you your bank has a computer and they're storing your information electronically. So therefore, the information about your accounts is a digital asset. So the general request we do in all of our plans, and this is what I'm sharing with other attorneys through Maat Legal. The first general step is we say that the trustee in the trust, the agent in the power of attorney, the personal representative in the will, all your fiduciaries in your plan, they can get an inventory of your digital assets limited to the type of account, who's the owner of the account, who's the beneficiary, and the value of the account. So just tell them what accounts the person has. So that's step one. So I feel like once we have that information in the documents, if I get a phone call from their kids, and they didn't update anything, didn't leave any records, at least we got a better place to start. Because once I get that phone call, it's too late to say, well, your parents should have done this or they should have done that. Right. And of course, we've made it really easy for our clients to keep their financial information together. We show them how to change their bank accounts into the trust, and we help them follow through to make sure that gets done and leave records. But even if they don't do anything after they leave my office, I know I got some general protection for the kids or for the next generation to be able to find some of that basic information. Now, the second thing, so that's the general request. Now, the digital asset trust is a place to make more specific requests. So I wanted a separate trust because I wanted to be very specific about what what the trustee can do over the digital asset trust. I didn't want it to get lost with the other all the powers that we give the trustee in the regular trust. So I created a separate document. And what I recommend that my clients do, at a minimum, I recommend for their email accounts, they give their trustee the ability to get a list of emails received. So not the content, not the ability to read the messages, just to see a list of what was received. So the modern mailbox. So if they don't know where a person was banking or where they're dealing at, they can get a list of emails received and start putting together the clues that way.
Got it. Wow.
Pretty cool, huh?
Well, it's cool, but I'm listening to you and I'm thinking, my goodness, if only people planned ahead, right?
Yeah. So I wrote my first digital asset trust in 2016. And part of the way it's tested, I feel like that got it to be what it is. I have a lot of engineer clients, and engineers, we love them, but they're some of our hardest clients as attorneys sometimes, the engineers and the doctors, because, in just, a couple hour meetings, they're like, why can't I understand all of these things? And a lot of times they can, but sometimes they get frustrated because they want to know, some of the legal jargon or some things that aren't really relevant. But anyways, they help me redefine the process. I started, kind of bouncing it off people. I started thinking of, okay, what would I do myself, right? I don't want to give too much access to all of my life. I definitely don't want to share passwords because that creates a chore if you're trying to constantly update your password somewhere. And it's usually a violation of most licensing agreements, that you're usually not allowed to share your passwords. So I started testing it with the engineers, and what's cool about this, and the reason I'm bringing it to other attorneys, I feel like it's something, once I explain it once in that first initial meeting with people, a lot of people go, yeah, I want that. I understand that, and I need it. So I use that as my law firm as part of my distinction. It's like, all right, as you're shopping around for attorneys, make sure they're planning for these things. So we talked about email. Here's the other big thing the digital asset trust does. Photos, those used to be in shoe boxes, right? And in a closet somewhere, but at least they existed. Right. Now, the digital world can become more problematic to leave access to those. So if they're backed up on the iCloud or in the web somewhere, Amazon Photo, Google Photo, whatever it is, now how do we transfer those things after you're gone? So as part of the digital asset trust, we mentioned media accounts as well. So common ones we do, like, so my trust now, my digital asset trust, I have it copy my iCloud account to my kids. So it makes my phone like a living diary is kind of how I view it. So all the photos on my camera roll will be copied to my children. And then I do YouTube videos. So like family videos of my kids, I'll upload them to YouTube just so I don't have to store all of that HD video. And then in my digital asset trust, I said copy my YouTube channel to my kids. And then I also mentioned my Dropbox and Google Drive. So that way I have a way to share all that information.
So my sense is attorneys, whether or not they're part of your digital system and the program that you've put together, have some sort of way that they have compiled this, or at least have a list for their clients about these are things you should think about, I'm guessing. But to organize it ahead of time, proactively, may not be happening as systematically. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say that's correct. I'd also say there's a lot of bad advice, even from attorneys around these topics. So some attorneys would say, well, just leave a password. It's like, but if you actually read those licensing agreements, you're not allowed to. So it's kind of a weird area of the law. Like if I gave my password, like let's use online banking, I think is an easier example. So if I gave someone my online banking password during my life and they were using it and doing transactions, that's one thing. But after I pass away, that license, my online banking license, was tied to my life, right? That account was for me. So if someone else is accessing that account after I'd gone, it technically shouldn't exist anymore. So it's kind of the same thing for photos and videos. And I have seen some cases where people have called us after the fact, saying someone's passed away. How do we get all those photos on their iPhone? It's like, it may be too late at this point. If they didn't give them access and they don't have a way to access their device, they can't call Apple and say, hey, will you let me get in here?
So there really is, part of what I'm hearing you say is there's really a sort of a digital list attorneys should have, people should have, as they plan for their future and also as they do some of their estate planning. And is there a place where people can get that kind of a list? Or how do you become an informed attorney or an informed consumer?
Yeah, so we have some resources at maatlegal.com for attorneys. Now, for all of our estate planning clients, so in that first meeting, usually that's when they first learn that they have digital assets, that they have the right to control those things. So we have what's called a digital asset inventory and checklist that we give to all of our clients at that time. Currently, that's not on the Maat Legal website, but that's a good idea. I may put it there. So under resources. But what the steps are is first to inventory them. So list the kind of things that you care about that you might want to last beyond you. And then the second thing is to check for what's called an online tool. So the law calls it an online tool. A good example of one is Facebook's legacy settings. So in Facebook, they have, it's called legacy settings. You can set up what happens to your account if you don't log into it, and that will be controlling. So I encourage people first to look there, whatever the platform is, first see if they provided a solution. Now, another one, Google has inactive account manager. It's based upon if no one logs into your account for a certain period of time, you can designate someone else to have access. That doesn't really work for me. My oldest son is 14. I don't really want to name him as my account manager. And I have a corporate trustee in my trust. So that's why I've included my Google stuff in my digital asset trust. I said, copy my YouTube channels, copy my Google Drive. So that way it instructs them on what I want to do. The third choice, or the fourth thing on that list, the checklist, the fourth option is consider sharing login credentials, if not prohibited. A lot of times it is prohibited, but there are some accounts that I've heard of. I want to say Ancestry.com. I had a client, he had a bunch of data there, and he said, what should I do? And I said, first check with the company, see if they have a way. They didn't. They didn't have like an online tool, something like the legacy settings in Facebook. So they told him at the time to share his account number and password. So it's like, all right, if that's coming from the company, then you can do it. But really, that should be the last choice.
Got it. Well,
so when people are planning for this,
right?
Yeah, when people are planning for this, I would say just follow those steps. See what items that you have that you care about, and see if there is a way to make a plan for them within those companies. And then, if not, look for other ways to transfer those accounts.
So the other thing that strikes me as I listen to you is the need for frequent updating. You used to do your estate plan, you put it in a file, just like you said, you put it in the filing cabinet and you dusted it off. Somebody dusted it off after you passed away. But you didn't really spend time updating it much unless something major had shifted. Now, when you have all these digital assets, those things change frequently.
Yeah. So in our binder with all the legal documents, the very last paper in there, the very last page is when to review and update. So we recommend about every 3 to 5 years that you dust it off and at least review the moving parts to see if it still fits your life, or if something major changes in your life, then you need to come see us. Like if there's a change in who you want to be in charge of your plan, there's a change in where you want your stuff to go, or there's tax changes. So there's been a lot of talk lately in Washington about some different tax changes. So if these things do get passed that affect the estate tax, we'll be blasting out emails to our clients, trying to alert them on the type of people that are affected. So that is a good point. You do need to update your plan. I would say, every 3 to 5 years, it's a good idea to review it and make sure it's still doing what you want it to do.
So let me ask you, you also talk a little bit about the 10 best tips for people as they do estate planning. Would you share with our audience what those are?
The 10 best tips. Let's see if I can go off my list. There might be like 10 ways how to find an estate attorney. So if you're looking for someone to do your estate plan. So some of the things that I recommend is, one of them is see if they do the administration work. So see if the attorney that you're hiring also does probates and trust administration. I've seen a lot of bad trust written by attorneys who they don't know what it means. At least if that's how I excuse this, I think they don't know how it works to actually administer a trust. Like a common example is sometimes people might think it's a good idea to leave 1% to each of their 30 grandkids. Depending on the size of the estate, it could quickly cost more to contact all of those beneficiaries and deal with them than the size of their gift. So sometimes people do things that they sound like a great idea, but in practice to administer it and carry it out, it's going to be more work and more of an expense. So I'd say, look for that, see if they practice in those areas. Two, like, what does service mean to them? Like, are you calling, is it just a one-man show attorney who, they answer their phone and they do the drafting, they do everything? So if so, that's fine. That can have, some advantages even, but it may be a little bit different level of service that you're getting. If they're in a meeting, then no one's answering their phone. There's no one else there to provide the service and to help you when they're busy. So that's something to look at. See, I got my cheat sheet here. I think I have all those things. You include digital asset language, something else to ask, like, do they have a plan for things that bank statements that you receive electronically, photos and videos that you store on the cloud? Do they have a plan for those? Do they have a plan? Do they have a way to access your documents online? So we give our clients, after we're done signing everything, we give them access to what we call a digital vault. So a way that they can access the information, and they can also allow other people to access it. They can choose who can see what and when they can see it. So we give them, that's the digital way we give them to transfer information if they want to do that. And then we give them all the documents in a binder, all the original. So that's 4. 5. You set aside time to help them fund the trust. So again, a lot of beautiful binders get created, but bank accounts never get moved in. So we've created a separate meeting after the trust is signed. Then we meet to talk specifically about what needs to go into the trust and how they get it in there. So that's 5. Want to go 10? Let's see, what other 10 ones? I'd say those are the major ones, those top 5.
Yeah, the major ones are the most important. There's a lot of things to think about. And it's interesting. It's probate and the whole estate planning is one of the things we spend very little time really discussing. And my goodness, it makes a big difference, doesn't it? If there's good planning.
Yeah, it does. So I would say talk to someone in your state too. So that could be 6. Go state specific. There's a lot of bad advice out there. A lot of times people say, "Oh, I talked to my neighbor," or I think especially some of these retirement communities, these trusts are a regular conversation, and the probate process varies quite a bit from state to state. So you may have someone at a cocktail party saying, "Oh, you don't need a trust. I helped my parents avoid probate. It was really easy. They just added my name to the title and added me to the bank account, and they avoided probate." So true that it could have worked in their situation and their state, but there could also be problems with that. So, be careful where you're getting advice from. And I would recommend seeing someone in your state and not trusting your neighbor or whoever might have told you some other things.
Our time is almost up, Rilus. And so pieces we've missed that you think are really important for people to know, or other thoughts that you would like to leave with the audience?
Let's see. I think we covered the main things. Number 1, just do it. So start your estate plan. In Arizona and California, the easiest way to do a will is write it out by hand, and that'll be valid. If you type it, then you need notaries and more witnesses and things like that. So I'd say just get started. And especially if you have a significant other who's not legally a spouse, or there's children who aren't legally your children, it's really important for them that you put something in writing and make it official so they have some rights. So I say just get started. Get started with the plan, and then see a local attorney in your state, and they can help you update your plan and make it better, to see if there's anything local that you should be aware of, and anything else that might cause your family issues.
Thank you so much. And for those of you who are listening, we will have information about Rilus and his company in the show notes, so you can look for further information. Of course, you're always welcome to contact his law firm. and get further information as well. So Rilus, thank you so much for being with us today.
I thank you. Thanks for having me.
And for those of you who are listening to Building My Legacy podcast, thank you for joining us. Be sure to remember to visit our website at buildtomorrow.com and our social media sites as well. Thank you so much.
You've been listening to Building My Legacy podcast with Dr. Lois Sonstegard. To book your appointment with Dr. Sonstegard, visit www.buildtomorrow.com.